Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Anzy D here with you, and I want to talk to you about the economy and what's going on in the economy and what we're going to do with these troubling times and how our U.S. consumers adapting to these troubling times. So I'm going to go over some of these notes I was able to get from Clear Value Taxes on some of the things that's going on in the economy. So right now, the economic situation is worsening, and as you can tell, we can see it by higher food prices, higher gas prices, and just in terms of inflation, period. Now, the question is, when will things get better? So a lot of people's wondering when things is gonna get better. Now, the Federal Reserve Bank from New York, right? They got a Center for Microeconomics department, and they just released some data, and the data for the quarter reported for household debt and credit. So let's talk about it. By the end of 2022, household debt has increased to $16.9 trillion. That's $2.7 trillion higher than it was pre-pandemic time. Credit card debt increased by $61 billion to $986 billion, past the pre-pandemic high. Interest rate, of course, are at a record high, so that's what's bringing up the numbers. And the average right now, APR for a credit card is about 19.14%, and the previous high was about 19% back in 1991. 35% of Americans are carrying credit card debts over month to month, so that's making it tighter. The data also shows that many people right now, especially after, all the stimulus ran out and after the pandemic, pandemic era right up to now, many people have credit cards, and what they end up doing is using their credit card for expenses. So right now, a lot of people are using their credit cards to pay off their expenses instead of savings, and their savings are going down. Not to mention, in this data, they also included some stuff about car payments and car loans. So car payment right now, a lot of people are falling behind with their car payment. That's because interest rate is going up, food is going up, gas is going up. A lot of people cannot keep up with their car payments. So they're saying right now, about 9.3% of people are behind on their auto loans. And auto loans balance has increased up to $28 billion in the fourth quarter of 2022. That's just one quarter, $28 billion. Remember some of the CPI videos I did before and some of the PPI videos I did before, we talked about how the used car industry, how many of the used cars prices were higher, sometimes even higher than the new cars, but now they both are up there just because of interest rate. Both new cars and used cars have high prices. Used cars came down a little bit, but right now the data is saying that right now, if you want a new car, only basically the rich people can afford a new car right now. So as we know by the different CPI data, the inflation is going up and it will continue to rise. Inflation is up and real wage growth is negative. So how do we keep up with the inflation? Inflation will continue to rise faster, and the average growth for wages is slowing down. Let's go back to the data and talk about savings. Remember, we talked about people are having to use their credit cards and dip it into their savings, and their savings are going down. So right now, the emergency savings, a lot of people don't even have emergency savings. The emergency savings, 25% of Americans right now cannot afford a $1,000 emergency. So if there's an emergency and maybe something happened to two of your tires or something happened to your car, and that probably coming to about $1,000 and things like that. Right now, 25% of Americans cannot afford that. They cannot afford to spend $1,000 on emergency right now. Now that 25% of people not able to afford $1,000 emergency expenses is one of the highest it's been since about 2014. So that $1,000, 25% of Americans cannot afford to have a $1,000 emergency. And that's one of the highest percentage number up since 2014. So since 2014, it hasn't been this high. But now, right now, after the pandemic, quantitative tightening, inflation, interest rate going up, 25% of Americans cannot afford a $1,000 emergency. Within that, and doing some more research and also getting some more information from Clear Value Taxes, we also was able to find out that 68% if they lose their job, 68% of people, if they lose their job, they cannot cover their month-to-month expenses. Matter of fact, they won't be able to cover their next month expenses if they lose their job. And that's going without their primary sources. Because, you know, in today's time, a lot of us have different ways of having different kind of income coming in. But that primary source of income, that's the one that's taking care of the rent or mortgage. That's the one that's taking care of the gas bill, the car payment, the car insurance, all of those things. If 68% of these people lose their job, they won't be able to keep up with their monthly expenses. Now, that's some big numbers, and they broke it down into generations. Like, for Generation Z, Gen Z said it was about 85% of them that was saying if they lose their job, 85% of Gen Z will not be able to cover their monthly expenses. From the ages of 25 to 58, 40% of them said that they have more credit card debt than their short-term savings. So that's going back into even the emergency savings. They have more credit card debts than their emergency savings. Millennials are also more likely to carry credit card debts than savings. 45%, I believe, for millennials. Generation X was about 44% of them saying that if they lose their job, they won't be able to cover their next month expenses. Also, they have more debt than what they have in their savings account because their savings is dwindling because of what is going on with the inflation, with the rise of interest rates, amongst other prices. They said Generation X, about 44% of Generation X have more debt than savings. And for baby boomers, it's about 25% of the baby boomers have more debt than savings. 38% of Generation Z have more debt than savings. Amongst the data and report, almost 70% of people say that inflation is making it harder to save money. Because of inflation, they aren't able to put across any money. A lot of people are having inflations on their month-to-month bill, maybe 200, maybe 300. But their month-to-month expenses are going up. So that makes it harder for them to save any kind of money outside of like retirement money. I mean, like saving money for like short-term, emergency, etc. For most people, the emergency savings is way less than what it was before the pandemic. So you know how they gave us stimulus checks and all type of different programs to help people out. But right now, most people have less saving than what they did before the pandemic. Even though right now unemployment is down, things will get worse because going on into the next quarters, you will see more people start to get laid off. Also cut back on hiring, which will equal to more unemployment, and the unemployment number will start to go up. When the unemployment number go up, you can see things start to get worse. Some other data that we can look at the Consumer Confidence Report. Consumer Confidence Report came out in January. They was expecting the number to be about 80. If it's below 80, then it's recession. For the month of December 2022, the Consumer Confidence Report number was about 83.4, but it fell to 77.8 in January. Consumer confidence is falling, and it kind of showed that it might be a recession, but since you have to have 2 quarters below 80, so you have to have 2 quarters below 80 in order to be considered as a recession. Now in 2022, we did have 2 quarters that was below the 80, but they was able to configure some numbers or the data and reconfigure the numbers and things. So it made it seem that it wasn't any recession. But as many people can tell, it's a slight recession and things like inflation and high interest rates hike is hurting most of the middle class and lower class. Not much of the people who are rich are being hurt by the rise of inflation and the rise of interest rates. For example, eggs are up maybe to like $6 a dozen. Most people who are rich are not really paying attention to that right now. So you can tell that the inflation and interest rate is hurting mostly people in the middle class and lower class. So with that said, it'll be mostly difficult for lower income and middle class Americans to survive during this economy. Now the economy will be hurt. That's because of interest rate hikes, and we have the Federal Reserve gonna have a few more meetings for the year. We're not sure how much basis point they will raise the interest rate, but definitely will be more interest rate hikes. We have quantitative tightening, which is the money printing is no more. So no more money printing, no more stimulus, no more any kind of program to help people out. And the GDP, December GDP is at 2.7%, which shows that it's a strong GDP for December was at 2.7%, which shows that it's a strong economic growth. But when January came around, the GDP changed up. And right now, we can tell that the economy is starting to have some troubling times. So we might avoid recession in 2023, even though we had 2 quarters of negative GDP in 2022. Like I said, they did the data and reconfigure the data. So now it seems that we don't or will not have a recession. It's probably like what they call a soft landing, and it won't be a hard landing. So real quick, ladies and gentlemen, we got CPI inflation at 6.4%. The PCE data is going up. Wage growth is still negative because people aren't getting that much of a wage increase or a raise in their paychecks. Interest rates will continue to go up like we just discussed. And it might go up to about 5.5% because that's what the Federal Reserve wanted at, about 5.5%, in order to lower the inflation. Unemployment will also get higher. We will have hiring freeze, we'll have layoffs, so unemployment will get higher. And just a wide variety. If we look at the economy as a wide, things might get worse before it get better. So once again, it's Ainsley D. Hope you got some value out of this. Also, make sure you check Clear Value Tax video about this and get some more details and information. Once again, it's Ainsley D. Hope you got some value out of this. I'll talk to you later. Peace.